question is from Tilly Middlehurst at Fitzwilliam College.
So I'm a feminist. My question is about the role of women, though. What should women's role in public and private life look like, and what are the material benefits of that?
Well, thank you for that. Can I take it? I don't even want to take this detour, but can we both agree on what a woman is?
Yes. An adult human female, it's a biological state of being that is also socially experienced. Can I please elucidate just one example of that social experience?
Yeah, I was going to answer your question, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So let's say you're a member of a tribe, and that in that tribe, you have the biological female anatomy, and in order to become a woman in that tribe, you have to also get a tattoo. That's a social experience that's mapped onto biological reality.
So can a woman have a prostate?
Can a woman have a prostate? Biologically speaking, a woman is an adult human female that has a biological reality, but it's also a social experience, right? So I don't...
Yeah, it's super easy. Like, can a woman have a prostate?
So as per my definition of woman, I would say that people who have a prostate are biologically male, but they can sometimes be socially treated as women.
Okay, got it. So women can have prostates. Got it. Okay.
He always has to like go for his little culture war shit. Like, what is a woman? Honest to God, one thing I like about myself is, although I am liberal, bro, I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna say whatever the fuck I want to say. Okay? There's women, there's trans women. I treat trans women as though they're women. I believe trans women are women, but trans women and women are obviously biologically two different things. I don't mind specifically calling a trans woman, a woman. But generally speaking, you won't hear me be like, nah, bro, she's trans, so bro, that she, you know, this is my friend so and so, she's a trans woman. But for the sake of debate, I don't mind just being like, look, there's trans women and there's women. I'm not giving Charlie Kirk shit. Like, I'm gonna keep it 100, bro. Like, I'm not gonna like play the game of like, oh my god, what will the progressives think of me if I don't say the perfect thing? Nigga, I do whatever the fuck I want to do, okay? I'm just gonna say what I want to say. Okay, frankly, libs, we've been doing a horrible job of debating these absolute rodents. So, you know, I would have just did whatever the fuck I wanted to do. But still, you know, she's doing okay. She's doing a good job. Charles does get his ass whooped by a small white girl. So, you know, let's continue to play the video.
So you're a feminist that actually isn't just fighting for women, you're also fighting for men.
So, yes, men also experience harms from patriarchy, but I argue...
We're talking about the same feminism, though, just make sure. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So, men also experience harm from patriarchal domination, but I would argue that those harms come from that system of domination itself. In the same way, for example, this isn't a threat, but if I reached across and punched you in the face, then my hand might hurt, right? So, are we understanding that there are, patterns of power? So, I would also fight for the rights of men as a feminist, just as I would fight for the rights of women.
Sure. You think women are happier than they were 40 years ago?
I think I would have a few responses to that. I think that women report more stress and dissatisfaction today because, not because they have more rights or because of feminism, but because they're under dual pressure to both excel professionally and also because of the domestic labor in homes that is structured around outdated expectations. So, for example, studies like the OECD's Better Life Index show that women's life expectancy, education levels, professional achievements have risen in countries with higher gender inequality. So I would argue that what you're calling unhappiness is actually visibility, because now we hear women expressing dissatisfaction, whereas in the 50s, we prescribed them Valium and we lobotomized.
Yeah. That's really rich. I didn't know women not to complain 50 years ago. That's funny.
We've always
no, hold on a second.
Bro, why do these niggas like always have to be mean? I didn't know women not to complain 50 years ago. One, you're not even 50. So you're not even old enough to say what women did or didn't do 50 years ago. I'm pretty sure they probably complained less 50 years ago. Probably because they would get popped in the mouth or like UFC elbowed in the throat or drop kicked down a flight of steps or choke slammed through a table. But besides that, the ugliness is just, it's just, ugh. You know what I'm saying? Like, the ugliness and conservatism is always a shock to me. It's not a shock, but it's always like, dude, like, what makes these niggas like this? The ugliness is so weird. And the point she made was great. Women did not have as much visibility and they didn't have as much of a voice back then. So if a chick was getting UFC comboed in the throat and chokeslammed through a table and Batista bombed through the door, you wouldn't, it's not like you were gonna know. If the man has full authority over the household and it's his woman, it's his family, it's his house, who are you to question what a man does with his household? You won't know. Am I just supposed to believe that miserableness or misery? See, maybe I need to take my ass back to school. Am I supposed to believe misery just like came about into existence after feminism was like successful in taking women from second-class citizens to first-class citizens to equal citizens? Like misery just formed right then and there, came into existence? Stop, dude. Absolutely stop. Life has never been easier in human history than it is now. Okay? Like to say like, oh, like people back then, you know, reported that they were so much happier. Well, we have access to more people nowadays. People are much more responsive probably nowadays. And people have the ability to voice how they really fucking feel. So it's just ridiculous if somebody could be like, well, 50 years ago, back when, you know, women were being, you know, drop kicked, you know, they were happy. Like, but the lies these niggas tell themselves just so they can start dropkicking women again, that's really what it is all about. Like, they want to be the ones to put UFC combos on their wives. They envy the men who lived in the 50s and the 40s because they got to do that. They want to be able to do it too, so they have to advocate for this whole, you know, fantasy world where back when women were second-class citizens, they were so happy. Lunatic, psychotic, crazy people activity, by the way.
Why are suicide rates going up more for women?
I think that
They're not
encourages...
complaining. Materially, women are killing themselves more. Why is that?
I think that even if both men and women have become unhappier, men's suicide rates have risen as well, and that's also been exponential. Can you at least concede that feminism offers only one potential explanation? There could be also other explanations.
Of course, obviously, but feminism is the glaring thing in front of us where we have fertility rates down, we have marriage rates down, we have unhappiness up, and we did something in the 1960s out of the universities of Brady Friedan and Gloria Steinem and all these feminists that basically said, you're trapped in a home, go get a job, freeze your eggs, take birth control, and all of a sudden women are way unhappier than they were 40 years ago. And I just have to ask the question, why is that? Is it working? And maybe there are biological differences between men and women that we should respect, and that deep down a lot of women want to get married and have children. In fact, we should applaud it, and we should support it, and we should say it means nothing if you're gonna go be a CEO of some shoe company or be some banker in London. What matters if you raise children and you have something to pass down long after you're gone.
This is only a prescription for women. Now, if you become a CEO of a shoe company as a man, you're great, you're accomplished, you're this, you're that. If you do it and you're a woman, it means nothing. Why haven't you popped out blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan babies yet? Why haven't you figured that one out yet? Useless scum. That's basically, it doesn't matter what you, that tells you the mindset of the conservative. And this is the consistent theme with them no matter what, right? If you belong to a certain demographic that isn't straight, white, and male, you're never good enough. You are never good enough. No matter what you accomplish, you are always beneath their boot. Oh, you're a CEO and you're a woman? Wow, what a waste. Meanwhile, if you're a man, you're accomplished, you're successful, you're a high-value man. Women should see your value, etc., etc., etc. Furthermore, this like description of women's emancipation as like, oh man, you know, women are freezing their eggs and hoeing around and refusing to have babies, where people are having children all the time. Obviously, we're not having as much children as we used to, but also standard of living has gone up, which means your child is a lot more likely to survive nowadays than before, meaning you don't have to pump out a whole bunch of them to see which ones make it so you can actually have a sustaining bloodline. Not only that, but it's not as cheap as it used to be to raise a family, if it ever really was, but it's not as cheap as it used to be. People actually want to have a good life for themselves and their children. They might want to live in a good area. They might want to send them to a private school. People have expectations and standards for their kids before they're even born. and oftentimes take time before they actually have kids. And when they do have kids, they have a certain amount to make sure they can maintain a proper standard of living and quality of life while simultaneously having children. Conservatives don't want to actually pass legislation that makes it easier on families. They instead just want to hype it up by showing pictures of like blonde-haired Aryan families drawn in Nazi Germany. Doesn't this make you want to have kids? That's the level of like, this is what we're dealing with. These are the kinds of people we're dealing with. They just take propaganda pictures of like white families from like 80 years ago drawn by some random guy. No policy, no plan, no nothing, just artwork. On some level, this is good politics, propaganda, imagery, things of that nature, but Lord have mercy, you have to back up your shit with policy.
I think I would bring 2 points to that. The first one is just really simple, which is that you can ascribe liberalism all you want as the cause of the unhappiness. I would argue something else. I would say that it's certain economic policy that has very little to do with the social acceptance of alternative lifestyles. I would say that we can recognize that income inequality across a vast swathe of Western countries has increased, which causes all kinds of social ills, a lack of social cohesion, housing price growth doesn't correspond with wage growth, monopolies increasingly become kind of emboldened to interfere with politics, and monopolies don't prioritize social health either. I think that those offer more compelling reasons for a decline in happiness than an increase in freedoms, because just one more thing, on an intuitive basis, generally speaking, people want more freedom, not less.
Okay, so if that's true, why is it? Do you agree that the happiest women of the West are married with kids?
I would have to look into it, but I think there are certain
and objectively we know that, right? The women with kids are not the ones tearing down statues, right? They're the ones that actually have obligations.
Does tearing down statues correspond to some kind of smiles per capita data set that I wasn't aware of?
Again, it's like, it's a little bit of a one-liner.
See, he's trying to bring like American kind of like emotional kind of bullshit, like, you know, culture war commentary into Cambridge University. It's like, dude, prepare yourself accordingly, you smug fuck. Happy women aren't tearing down statues. Like, okay. I mean, like, like, how do you, like, there's so many different things that lead to someone being willing to tear down a statue besides just unhappiness. And even then, it implies that the statue being torn down is an inherently bad thing, regardless of said statue and what it represents. I mean, like, a whole host of assumptions are being put into that one statement, thinking he can bring, like, bullshit American, like, bro, stop. You were in Europe. You're over there with them Europeans. Act accordingly, though. Light your ass up, trying to bring that culture war shit. Happy women don't tear down statues. Can we talk about the statues? Are they good statues? You know, if a bunch of unhappy blue-haired radical feminists tore down a fucking Confederate statue, somebody buy them some Chick-fil-A. They probably wouldn't want to eat Chick-fil-A. Somebody buy them some Five Guys. Somebody, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, get them, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's do something positive for them. Let's do something great. Like, let's make something happen. I mean, like, just because they're crazy, blue-haired and nose-ringed and crazy and don't all of a sudden mean that what they're doing is inherently wrong. But Charlie Kirk, he's so caught up in the culture war WWE bullshit. Nonsense.
The happy and the grateful. The happy and the grateful usually don't go burn down Wendy's in their spare time, of which we saw in our country all throughout a single summer. But as a side note, you would agree, objectively, study after study, survey after survey, that the women of the West that are married and have children, especially a lot of children, are far happier than even the ones that earn more money correlated at the same age.
So I also don't think that happiness is a very good metric, and neither do you, because you think gay people shouldn't just pursue happiness by being gay. They have other moralistic considerations to be making. So I don't think smiles per capita is a particularly convincing way to measure whether or not we should encourage women to be autonomous. I think we should maximize agency within a fair system that has reasonable parameters because it's expedient, it's good for the economy, it's logical, it's the moral thing, because if we can't prove the material harms, we shouldn't discourage it. And also, self-reported studies is a really flawed way to do psychology. It's the week before my university exams right now, and I'm standing here explaining the basic methodology behind survey collection in sociology, which you don't even think is a real subject, to Charlie Kirk. If I took one of those surveys right now, I'd check extremely miserable. But so would a Palestinian child who's been torn to smithereens. How are we going to measure?
You would say extremely miserable?
No, I'm kind of making a joke.
No, I mean, but seriously, like, but hold on. I mean, like, that's an important point, though, is that the women in the West have it the best in the world, and yet they're way unhappier than women of sub-Saharan Africa. There's something fundamentally wrong here. Because the women of sub-Saharan Africa have something that a lot of women in the West do not have. The women in the West have cats and they have good jobs. And the women of sub-Saharan Africa, they have a belief in the divine and they have kids. And maybe there's a biological undercurrent that is.
They have cats and they have a job. And that's bad. And it's like this is the intellectual power of Charlie Kirk. This is what Cambridge has allowed into their facility. This bullshit. Bro, this like bullshit of like all the women have cats and they're whores and they have more cats and they're even bigger whores. It's like, bro, how many chicks do you know who just live a cat life? Like, they take like one chick who dedicated her life to money and being single and freedom and try to apply that to everybody when that's not even most people at all. It's ridiculous. And to sit there and say like, oh, women in sub-Saharan Africa are happier. There's no guarantee that if you took a Western woman and put her in that same situation, she'd be happy. A drop in standard of living, a drop in literally everything. You think they'd be happy? Probably not. There's obviously value in civilization. There's obviously value in all of these different. And by the way, it's also interesting how these same people ignore any and all like clear and like signs of men also being unhappy. Young men are unhappy. Young men aren't just vibing out. Young men aren't going to school. They're not graduating. They're not getting good jobs. Young men are falling away by the wayside. Young men are not having a good time right now. Young men would find themselves feeling unhappy. You would find them to be unhappy if you actually did a survey. If you look at the surveys right now, young men are unhappy. I would imagine a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's no American dream. Education is about to become more expensive than ever. You know, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You know, the social media brain rot of constantly opening up your phone and seeing people living more extravagant and luxurious lifestyles than you, or at least perceiving them as living such a lifestyle. There's so many different ills and challenges that come from the civilized world that have their own, you know, alternative, or, you know, like the idea that you're going to just go from like living in the West to sub-Saharan Africa and have a better life is laughable. There are going to be challenges and issues with that life that you're probably not going to enjoy. And there's going to be challenges and issues that come with our life that they wouldn't enjoy. Not only that, though, plenty of sub-Saharan African countries are developed. They work 9-to-5 jobs just like we do. They've got skyscrapers and roads and electricity just like we do. So I'm assuming he's talking about like tribes in like rural areas that have no like development. Which is like, do you actually believe any Westerner wants to trade spots and you actually think they're going to find happiness at the end of the rainbow? Come on. Obviously, the system we currently have can be tweaked and improved and made better. That's the solution, rather than like fantasizing about what it would be like to be some like sub-Saharan African tribesman. Like, obviously, no one would enjoy it. And let's not even pretend like Charlie Kirk thinks those people are even human anyways.
Keeping a lot of women from realizing their full potential. And so without reading your phone and just like, you know, connecting.
I'm not really reading my phone.
Well, it's fine. Sure, then you can answer without it.
Without reading data and facts and science and just like allowing me to poison your mind with random vibe-based opinions, it's like, a nice try, Charlie Kirk, but we are on to you.
Fair enough. Would you agree that it's a good thing that more women get married and have children in the West?
I would ask you, would you say that a sub-Saharan African woman who's experienced female genital mutilation and checks extremely happy in a survey, and I also would check extremely happy in a survey, who do you think would be objectively more happy, even if they both check the same answer?
No, again, so I fully, if you want to talk about how Islam mistreats women, we could talk all day long. Like, I'm all for that.
Me too.
Okay, good. So we agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually have agreement.
Many things.
Then we should shut off Muslim immigration to the UK, right? We totally agree.
I think that all religious fundamentalism is bad, and if you take that logic, we should also not allow evangelical Christians into the UK either.
Hold on. So hold on a second. Hold on. That's funny. Hold on.
Bro, I don't think Charlie Kirk understands that, like, a lot of this female like genital mutilation is more regional than it is religious. Like you can go to plenty of Arab Muslim countries and they're not doing that at all. At all. At all. It is regional and in the context of the specific country in which Islam is rather than Islam itself. And I'm not even a fan of Islam. You know, frankly, I think in significant numbers, it can be even scarier than fucking like, you know, evangelical Christianity. But there's no denying. And evangelical Christians like to have it both ways. They like to present Sharia law-esque policy while talking about how bad Islam is. Well, it's like, y'all niggas seen that y'all need to be the best of friends. Because every time I look up, y'all are advocating for some Sharia law type shit. Every time I look up, it's Sharia law, Sharia law, Sharia law. Every time I look up, they want women to cover up and stay silent and not have a voice and not be educated and not make money and not have jack shit going for them. You know, it's like, I don't understand the, I don't understand the fuck? Yeah, I don't understand how how conservatives can sit there and bitch and moan and like complain about Islam, then simultaneously propose all sorts of Islam shit. Like, do you like it or do you not? Or, oh my bad, it's brown people. The Muslims are brown. Therefore, whatever they believe is inherently bad. When they do it, it's regressive and barbaric. When we do it, we're understanding the importance of women's happiness and their destiny in the world. These people are fucking crazy. They're fucking crazy. Obviously, he's not going to agree with her point and be like, yeah, I guess you're right about Christian evangelicals. No, he's going to sit there and espouse that, you know, it's a core tenet of Islam to genitally mutilate women, which I'm almost 100% certain is just not true.
Can you show me a single... Show me, what would your example, because I have 50, of a single Christian country that you would say mistreats women right?
America.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We had a female woman vice president. We had a female vice president, a female speaker of the House. Women earn more than men in America.
In Rwanda, female representation in government supersedes the UK by quite a lot. Did women get treated better in Rwanda?
Okay, I might be super off this. Like, is Rwanda Islamic? Like, I'm not totally sure. I don't think it is. Like, is it? Like, I don't know, actually. It's not. So, again, we were just talking about Islam. It's a little bit of a side note, but you must be morally clear, because you brought up female genital mutilation, which is a teaching of the Islamic faith. But as a side note, like, again, this...
I'm pretty sure it's not. Hold on a second. Yeah, I'm like, apparently it's not, which I suspected as such because there's so many Arab Muslim countries that do not practice it. So I'm like, there's just like, I don't even know if like Wahhabists do that. I mean, Wahhabists are crazy, but I don't even know if they're like big into that. They're more into like the whole killing everybody thing. Like, this is the thing about the whole Islam like fear-mongering thing. You can't advocate for the same shit that you think Sharia law advocates for and then say Sharia law is somehow morally worse than the West. Like, it's kind of weird how, like, conservative, like, Christo-fascist Americans utilize liberal progressive ideology in the West as, like, a shield while wielding Christo-fascist racist ideology as a weapon, where they attack Islam and other regressive religions while simultaneously trying to use Western progressive values as a reason for why these ideologies are so bad. Look at how great we are in the West. We're not like those Muslim barbarians, but wouldn't it be nice if we were a little bit more like them? But we're white, though. It's different. We're white, so it's different. But wouldn't it be cool if we kind of did a little bit something like them? That's literally what it is these people want Sharia. They just don't want the brown people part of it. They want Sharia law. They want women to be worth less. They want women to not have as much of a voice. They want women to be silent. They want women to cover themselves. They want Sharia law. Make no mistake, these Christo-fascist lunatics, they love the regressive ideologies within Islamic law. They love it to death, okay? To death. Even when they're watching plenty of Muslim countries moving toward a much more progressive day-to-day life, they don't care. They see beauty in the regressive aspects of Sharia law. These people are not in any way, shape, or form defenders of the West's liberal, progressive, accomplishments. These people are defenders of regressive, psychotic ideologies, and they pretend to not like it, because the people associated with it are brown, but deep down inside, they actually think these ideas are really good, only when white people do them.
This is very important, which is I'm not here to require you to do anything or not. I'm making a simple observation, which is objectively true regardless. The women of the West are miserable, and they're miserable for a reason, because we've told them to suppress how they are made by God and pursue something else and get a bunch of trinkets and get a bunch of promotions, and they end up at 38 years old with a big flat in London, and they're miserable. And we should tell them to stop freezing their eggs and start finding their partner earlier and have lots of babies.
Who are these people? Like, bro, I know this happens to some people, but like this is like, just because you're not getting women doesn't mean women aren't dating. Like, this is not, bro. Who are these women that Charlie Kirk be talking about? Like, instead of being encouraged to get trinkets and this, that, and the third, they need to get married and have tons of babies. Look, nothing against the traditional lifestyle. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I'd love to live a traditional lifestyle one day once I make a whole bunch of money, become super powerful. But, bro, come on. Like, let's like operate within the confines of reality here. Trying to grab like a minority of women and paint them as the representation of what most women want or even going for is ridiculous. It's laughable. It's nonsensical. And the reality is that, like, feminism, although it's been impactful, I don't think most women are sitting there thinking, I'm going to live the rest of my life single and climb up the corporate ladder and be miserable when I'm 40 years old. Most women aren't thinking like that. They are pursuing relationships. They are pursuing marriage. They are pursuing children. They might not be having 6 blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan babies, but they're trying to do something. This sort of like childish, like uber privileged outlook on how life works is very unique to conservatives. This sort of like, just like drop everything and have 8 babies. It's like, well, first I need to like have an education so that if something happens to my husband, I can provide for our kids. Also, if my husband's a lunatic, I need to be able to leave him and provide for myself and our kids. I want to live a little, see some things, experience something, try to find the right person for me. Like, it's like they live in this weird like fantasy world where you just wake up one day and everything is just put right before you. But in life, it's not like that for most people. It's a constant search. It's this long ass adventure of trying to put all the pieces together. It's just childish, dude. It's insane.
Yeah, okay, I think I'd bring 2 just final points to this. First one is just really intuitive, right? Which is that if you actually care about women's happiness, then the solution is to structurally support them. That means universal childcare, shared legally enforceable parental leave, and in Nordic countries where women have high workforce participation and also some state support, they report higher life satisfaction than in more conservative countries, including America. So if your metric is happiness,
just use satisfaction surveys. You just told me they're BS.
So are satisfaction surveys bullshit or not? Because you told me they're bullshit.
Do you acknowledge satisfaction surveys or not? You just told me that they're BS. Do you think they're objective? We can use that as data?
I don't think that
yes or no?
It is the only sole data set, but it is a data set that necessarily
you told me they're so
matters.
flawed and you self-report. Okay, by the macro self-satisfaction data, I am correct. And you are right. When you have paid family leave, you are happier. I'm actually a proponent of that. At Turning Point USA, we pay for 6 months when somebody has a child. I think there's a lot of agreement we can have on that. We need to encourage having more children. I think the Hungarian child policy is phenomenal. We should look at that because the greatest thing that is plaguing the West is we're not having enough kids. And it's not just bad because we won't have a future. It's also bad because the present is awfully miserable for too many women as well.
Not going to pass any policy to make this easier. Not going to make any policy to actually make it easier for women to have kids. We're just going to promote it. We're just going to put the vibes out there and hopefully it'll just happen. Childish people. Childish people. It is conservatism is an infantile, childish outlook on the world that needs to be relegated to like something other than government. It's just they need to have their own little spots where they just like do the rain dance and like dance around the fire and like ooga booga. This shit should not be in government. I'm sorry. And he brings up Hungary. Yeah. I was like, of course, of all the European countries, he brings up a puppet state of Russia. Okay, thanks.
Okay, in which case I think we get...
Do I start bringing this to a close, please?
Okay, I think just one final thing, which is that in which case we get to a really interesting argument about what parts of womanhood can be demarcated to the social and what kinds of womanhood can be demarcated to biological. So, for example, my anatomy is demarcated to the biological, but the fact that I might potentially be a better nurturer than a man, I would demarcate that to the social, you might demarcate that to the biological, in which case we have differing moral scales of value. I would ask why we should necessarily prioritize your moral scale of value, which prioritizes things like the birth rate, when in actual fact there are various other moral scales of value. And if you yourself are a free market American, why is it the case that you would not, like the previous speaker noted,
I've already answered
extend personal freedoms towards all spheres, including a private sphere?
I believe in absolute truth claims, and it's absolutely wrong and bad when a society stops having kids to replace their own population, and then you have to import the third world, and you become the third world. It's bad.
I disagree, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
This become the third world shit is crazy. The right wing is the third world. I've seen white nationalists on Twitter saying MAGA is a third world ideology. I've literally seen white nationalists panicking about the fact that MAGA is anti-medicine, anti-science, anti-expert, anti-institution, anti-government, literally begging for a king. The idea that white people can't be third world is delusional. I'll give credit where credit's due. Europeans have made a great, massive amount of leaps in all sorts of fields in the last 400 years or so. But let's not pretend like there's like this like weird idea that like conservatives of all colors have, like white people are like gods. It's like, no, they're people. And they can be lied to. They can be convinced to run into the Capitol and die for a fat ass. They're people. This whole thing of like, it could never happen to us. It's happening to us. It's happening to you. Charlie Kirk is the third world. Donald Trump is the third world. Donald Trump behaves like a Latin American dictator. Donald Trump behaves like an African dictator. He behaves like this. We don't look up and see Donald Trump's niece or like great niece running in the Olympics. Y'all remember that? Was it like Somalia or some shit where they had this chick who had no business racing in the Olympics or some shit, was racing for no other reason than because her uncle was like somebody important who wanted her to be in the race? Bro, the corruption is insane. It is insane. Donald Trump knows full and fucking well, and MAGA knows full and fucking well, they have no intention of upholding the political philosophies that have led the West to becoming so emulated and imitated by the rest of the world. They have no intention of upholding any of that. They couldn't give a fuck about social sciences, political sciences, philosophy, any of that. All they care about is Christian nationalism and whiteness. And, you know, at the end of the day, religion and identity and culture and race aren't bad things to worry about. But when you're advocating for people to swim in poop water, when you're trying to destroy education for children and adults, when you're trying to destroy the standard of living for people with bullshit tariffs, when you're ruining everything, there has to be a conversation at some point about how you are, in fact, the third world. This idea that only brown and black people could be the third world. It's like, I mean, that's what you want to believe. You believe that. That's what you want to believe. Go on ahead and believe that. You got it. You can have that. I ain't even tripping. You win.